So the specificities of Morocco, they come from strategic choices made early in its modern history. This is one of the reasons, strategic choices made very early in our modern history. And also, the second issue is political reforms that started more than 15 years ago. So I will explain these specific choices that was done in the beginning of our modern history, in the 50s, and I will also present briefly these reforms that started 15 years ago. And these two issues are very important to the model of Morocco and are one of the reasons, or two of the reasons that make Morocco still stable and continue to be stable. So Morocco, you know that Morocco was under the administration of France and Spain during the 51st years of the last century. So in 56 we started obtaining our independence from France and from Spain in 56. So in these very few years, first years of the independence, we opted in political pluralism. So this is one first thing very important. In the other countries, especially Arab countries, the political power that obtained the independence became the unique party. If you go to Tunisia, to Egypt, to Libya, to Syria, and so on, they all were under administration of England or France or Spain or whatever, Italy. And when they obtained the independence, the political force that obtained the independence became the unique party. And they implemented a political system based on the unique party. In Morocco, it was not the case. In Morocco, we started in 58 by a law saying we should have political pluralism. We cannot have a one-party system. So it is one of the basements of our party, political pluralism, and a large number of parties and competition between parties should be the system that should be implemented, and it was a choice done in 58. We also had in 58 a very important law related to individual, collective and labor union freedoms. So all about associations, unions, political parties, and so on should be free. So this law was issued in 58, and this is also one of the fundamental law that we have in Morocco, to understand that the idea of freedom, collective and individual freedom, is the basic issue in our society. Okay, let's go now to the 90s, where we started a series of reforms that started under the last king, Hassan II. He was died in 1909. So he started this reform, and this reform started by focusing at the beginning on human rights. So, and these reforms has led to the ascent of the opposition party, that was the Socialist Party at that time, who arrived to the power, leading the government in 1998. So it was something also important to understand, that when you want to have an idea about how deep is the democracy, you have to look if you have what we can call alternation to the government. If you always have the same party going to even if you have a parliament, if you have elections, but if it's all the time the same party that win the elections, it's not a democracy. In Morocco in 98, we had, after elections, the raising to the power, to the government, of the political party that was leading the opposition, and it was the Socialist Party in 1998. So this is one of the results of the reforms. Then in 1999 came the King Mohammed VI, and he showed from the beginning his very strong commitment to develop and to continue to implement the democratic reforms. So since the King came, he committed to continue and to accelerate all the reforms related to the rule of law, human rights, and so on, and so on. So since '99, a lot of reforms was implemented, and with a lot of results. Let's just say that since that period, elections are free and transparent. Every national elections we have, or local elections, we have observers coming from NGOs, from outside of Morocco, from Europe, from Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe, or European Parliament, American NGOs and so on, have come to observe the election, and they always issue reports saying that there is no problem with the transparency of the elections. And also all the parties in Morocco, they do not, since 1999, before it was the case, but since 1999, exactly since 2002, the elections of 2002. The first election after 1999 was held in 2002. Freedom of media and protest are effective. Every day in Morocco you have protests here in front of the parliament or in other places. Major reconciliation effort was made by setting up a commission that was named Equity and Reconciliation Commission to address past human rights violations by identifying and compensating the victims. During the long period, it was called in the 70s and 80s, we had a period where we had a number of human rights violations. So after this period in the 90s, in 2004, a commission was organized to look for all the cases that was raised related to these violations, and they addressed all these violations and identified all the victims and compensated the victims and issued some recommendations related to human rights. And since these dates, 2004, human rights has become something very important, and in the new constitution of 2011, it was included in the new constitution, and I will talk about this afterwards. Also in 2004, we had a new family code, especially related to the status of the women, to make women equal to men, because previously women were always considered under the responsibility of men, either the father or the husband. So in 2004 we had this new family code, and women became equal to men, and it's completely clear in the law. So all of this, it's interesting to understand that all of these reforms was done before the Arab Spring, before 2011. And that's why in 2011, when we had in all the Arab world this protest by young people, by political parties and so on, it is interesting to note that when Mohammed VI, the king, came on March to say we will do a new trend of reforms, he was credible enough because of all the track record that we had on this reform. But what happened in the other countries, the head of state came, also said we will make reform, but since they didn't do anything before the protest, they were not credible enough to implement that reform. So in Morocco, because of these very important choices that were done in the beginning of the 50s, because of the fact that reforms was not done under pressure, but were done because of the willing of all the people, and especially the king, to promote and to develop the state of law, the rule of law, and all democracy in our country, made that even if we had this Arab Spring, we could maintain at that time our stability, and also used all this energy during the Arab Spring to accelerate the reforms. And the roadmap of the new reform is the new constitution that was discussed and was adopted in 2011. So after this new constitution in 2011, we had the national election, and this national election in November 2011 led to a second alternation because of the party, which is the PJD party, which is leading now the government, was the first opposition party. He won the elections, and then the prime minister was the head of this party, who is Mr. Karim now, who is leading the government in this moment. And it's also, as I said previously, a second alternation to the power. So during the last 50 years, the two biggest forces as political opposition forces obtained the fact to lead the government. One in 1998 and one in 2011 after national election and after a new constitution. So this is very important to understand that politics in Morocco has a real sense because of the opposition can once win the election, and the new constitution says, and this is what I will explain now, that when you win the elections, you lead the government. This is completely clear in the constitution. So, three conclusions related to this small story. The fact that Morocco did not wait for the Arab Spring to announce reforms made it able to absorb the wave of protest in a logic of institutional evolution, maintaining peace, stability, and economic growth. The second conclusion, the political changes introduced made it possible to observe the protest and to look at this changement within the institution. It's very important that the institutions could absorb the changement. The changement was not done on the street, because when you have changement done on the street, it shows that you have weak institutions. The changement in Morocco happened within the institution, by election, by the new government, not outside of the institution saying that you have to recreate other institutions. So it is very important to note that. It is very specific to Morocco. So what we are all trying to implement in our country is to preserve political stability, because without political stability you don't have economy, you don't have investment, you don't have growth, you don't have employment, you cannot address social needs, education and so on. So you need to maintain political stability, but at the same time, if you focus only on political stability, you don't have a sustainable policy. So you have to implement at the same time very deep reforms. So Morocco is doing this, stability and reforms, and you should not develop stability without developing reforms, and you should not also implement such number of reforms that could also create a lack of stability. So you try to maintain and to walk on two feet. One is stability and the second is reforms, and you give the same weight to each feet. So the new constitution, I will not present all the constitution, it will take too much time, but some of the issues. First of all, it establishes the separation and balancing of powers, the three powers, executive, legislative, and independence of justice. And the parliament is independent also from the government, very clear in the constitution. It gives the government the use of executive power, and it states, as I said previously, that the leader is obligatory from the party which win the national and legislative elections. The authority and effectiveness of the House of Representatives are reinforced in legislation. The laws should go through the parliament. And in the function of government control, also the role of this house to control the government is more effective and more important than previously. So one of the key rule of the new constitution is linking between responsibility and accountability. You cannot be responsible for whatever if you're not accountable to the people and to the team related to what you have done during your mandate. So every responsible should be accountable. And regarding the government, the parliament is in charge of bringing and holding the government to accountability. Gender equality between men and women is a commitment of the state to implement this gender equality, as we have already, gender equality. but the Constitution says this is the law, and we have to work and to have specific laws and specific mechanisms to develop gender equality between men and women. The positioning of the Amazigh Berber language as an official language alongside with Arabic, the introduction of the principles of good governance and accountability, and the elimination of total parliamentary immunity in the House. Parliament MPs don't have any immunity except the immunity of opinion and of speaking. Previously they had immunity that was protecting them, and now they are not protected except for their immunity to talk and to give their opinion, and also to criticize the government, to criticize whatever they want. All the recommendations of the Equity and Reconciliation Commission that I presented previously related to human rights became now law, so was introduced in the Constitution. And we can also speak rapidly about the regionalization, because we will promote a way of governing Morocco which will be completely different than it is now, implementing a large regionalization in all Morocco, with more powers in the regions than that we have today. So I just want to conclude this short presentation saying that in this framework, historical framework, in these reforms, that we understand that one of the most important things that we are doing is developing and implementing our democracy in Morocco towards reforms on several issues: reform of justice, human rights, good governance, and so on. And in this aspect, the House of Representatives has a very important role because of the law. All the law from the Parliament, the controlling of the government go through the Parliament. So the role of the House of Representatives specifically has to be enhanced and developed much more than it was in the past. That's why we have discussed a strategic plan in our House to develop the role of the Parliament and the role of the House of Representatives. And this plan is in this document I have spent gave previously. I did not present it, but it is interesting to understand that we have a strategic plan in this House to meet the goals of the Constitution. And it's not very common when you go to Parliament, to Congress, to have a strategic plan to say how are we today, what are the goals of our House, and what should be our role effectively, what is the weaknesses that we have, what are the strengths that we have, how should we implement, and what are the actions that we should implement to act as we should act in the Constitution. So we have this plan that was issued in the end of 2012, and we are implementing now to make the Parliament at the level of the text that was written in the Constitution. Well, regarding the Reconciliation Commission, I don't have the very precise numbers, but I will give you more or less the number of situation cases was something like 16,000. But you should, there is this, are we going to see the National Center of Human Rights? Okay. So you have the Conseil National des Droits de l'Homme, National Council of Human Rights, who is following this specific issue related to human rights. They will give you the precise number. It's something like 16,000. And the amount of money that was paid to compensate, it was it's between 100 and 200 million US dollars. It's something like that. But I prefer that you see the right figures in the National Council of Human Rights. Related to economy, we are very open economy. We have free trade agreements with a lot of countries, especially the United States. and also with Europe and with other countries. We are linked, it is interesting to note that number, that figure, we are linked to 1 billion consumer markets. So if you totalize the number of population of countries with whom we have free trade agreements, as Europe, United States, Turkey, Egypt, and so on, the global amount of the population is 1 billion consumers. So when somebody comes in Morocco and do an investment in Morocco, he can export to 1 billion consumers. It is very interesting to note that. And so Morocco is a very interesting platform for investing, especially when you want to face or to target the European market, the American market, the Occidental and African market. And since you have some very good skills related to the workforce who is in Morocco, and also the infrastructure, the cost of exports, the fiscal system also is interesting when you export. So it is very interesting to come in Morocco and to attract investment. And we have a very active policy to attract investment in our country. So every American that would like to do export-import with Morocco, I'm sure that there is a lot of potential markets that are not explored enough. We can say that, for example, between Europe and Morocco, there is a lot of export and import and business and investment and so on. Also because of the language with France, Spain, and so on. And it can be developed, obviously. But I'm sure that between the United States and Morocco, because of the geographical distance, because of the language also, there is a very more important potential that could be developed if more people, and more American people, and more Moroccan people were more dedicated to promote investment and business between the two countries.
Anybody else want to chime in if you got some questions? So James.
Good morning. My name is James Gomez, and I just want to follow up on an issue that was raised in the upper house, which is the issue of immigration reform. James Gomez. And I said I was just trying to follow up on an issue that was raised in the by the President of the upper house, which is the immigration issue. And let me say that some of the things that you guys are doing here are being watched around the world. And you need to be commended for trying to reform such a very complex and difficult issue. Because at a time when Saudi Arabia and Israel are deporting a lot of African immigrants, you guys have decided to take a more long-term view on this issue. And one of the issues on this reform is how to include people that have been here for a long time. Because I stated Morocco was a gateway for these people who are trying to get to Europe, and they end up being stuck here. And the issue from critics is how to get these people legal. And one of the language on the reform is they have to show proof of being here for at least about 5 years, if I'm correct. And the question is, if they were here illegally and undocumented, how do you verify that? So if you can address that issue.
Well, I don't know exactly how they do the government to define the criteria, but I will just say that this new political immigration policy is also very important. Because of, and what is interesting is that we didn't wait, we didn't wait to become a problem to try to start to address this issue. We don't have a very large number of immigration people in legal situation, but the number started to grow, and it was important to understand that we had to find an answer to these people, an answer for these people, and answer also for Moroccan people related to this issue. And it was also interesting to show that Morocco was not only a country that was creating immigration to Europe, but was also a country that was seen as a gateway from sub-Saharan people coming towards Morocco and facing, targeting Europe or whatever, but also the destination country for immigration. And because of, and also destination for people coming from north, not only people coming from sub-Saharan country, but we have thousands of people coming from France and from Spain because of business, because also of economic crisis in Spain, and so on. So it was necessary to have a policy on that issue, and this policy started by giving a legal status to the people that was in Morocco, that were in Morocco for a long period. This is what I can say. What I can say also is that it's something quite new, because we started working on that issue since 2 months, something like that, and we will continue to develop this aspect. And at the same time, immigration is a worldwide issue, and we face sometimes some difficulties with Europe because of, we discuss a lot, but at the end of the day, Europe wants only to stop immigration, and we want people not to come, and that's it. And they want all the problems remains in the continent of Africa. And since we are in the gates of Europe, they just want us to be the keeper of the immigration, and they are aware of that. This cannot be an answer, and we discuss a lot with them on that issue. They understand it, and they start to think about how we can have a win-win cooperation on that issue. And but we speak a lot on that issue, but we do not act enough on that problem.
Okay. Good morning again. I'm Kira Mayo. With consideration to how new the changes, with consideration to how new all of the constitutional changes are, I'm curious about practical application, how day-to-day people are actually receiving and living these laws. The JD, correct, is moderate Islamist, and I'm just curious. In the United States, we have a theoretical, at least, separation of church and state. In the United States, it's largely Christian, and that does find its way into policy. And I'm curious as to how you define moderate Islamists, and whether or not religious freedoms are practical or just theoretical at this point. And the same I would ask about family law, considering this just happened in 2004. Is there a pure generational divide? Is it that only people under 30 practice this new family law and folks older reject it? Or do you find that culturally amongst the people, these types of reforms are really well received?
Religion is in all Islamic countries and Muslim countries and Arabic countries a very important issue, and especially because of you can have trend to mix between policy and religion. It's something that happens not only in Arabic countries, but also in Europe and previously, or United States also, and so on. On that issue, we have local, if I can precise this, or say it like that, we have local answers to this important issue. First of all, we are not a secular country because of the constitution. We are an Islamic country, so Islam is the religion of so-called the state, if we can say. But at the same time, it's not enough to stop at this. We should never stop at that sentence, because we have two things to say more than that. The state protects all the religions. You are in Islamic Muslim country, but at the same time, the state protects all the other religions. So you can live in Morocco, or be Moroccan, and not be a Muslim. So it is very clear. and it is in the constitution, it's in the same sentence. Okay? This is the first thing. The second thing is that the power of the religion should never be mixed to politics. The power of religion is beyond the hands of the King of Morocco. One of his specific role and power is religion. So you never, even if you don't have the right to say, I am an Islamic party. You cannot say that. Even the PJD, which is a party that belongs historically to this idea, you will never hear them saying, we are an Islamic party, or you will have all the parties could say, we are Islamic parties. Because in Morocco, it is forbidden to present yourself in politics as defending a specific religion. Okay? And this is by law. This is not only principle. Let me tell you that, for example, in this house, one of the members of the parliament was elected, and when he was elected, one of his adversaries went to the constitutional court because he used in his flyers, he used the symbol of Islam, who was a mosque. So in his flyer, he had himself, and he has the background mosque. And somebody went to the court, an adversary went to the court, and said he used symbol of Islam, so he should be, he cannot be elected, and was elected previously. So the court cancelled and issued a judgment saying yes, he used symbols of religion, and this helped him maybe for being elected, and then the court cancelled completely his election, and he had to present himself again, and another election was done. So it is important to understand that even if you are in a Muslim country, at the same time you can never use religion formally, as you said, formally. Somebody could do it, but it's forbidden. Okay? So you have also this theoretical separation between the religion and between the policy. And last thing I can say is that you have in Morocco a very strong Jewish tradition, because we have Jewish people from Morocco. You have Christian people. The Christian came because of the colony period in the beginning of the last century. But much previously, you had a large number of Jewish people who are Moroccan as well as Muslim people. So in Morocco, if you go outside, you can find mosques, you can find church, you can find synagogues, and you know, for example, when we had, it is one of the rare countries where you have such a symbiosis and proximity between living together in religions.
I've got one other question, actually two. We're all traditional media companies, and looking at where the media content comes from in a traditional form via print, social media. Want to see how the government looks at social media, if there's any policy issues on the use of social media as it relates to the government or the kingdom or anything like that. That's one question.
Okay.
And then the other question is...
I have a question for you.
Okay, all right.
You can tell me, or you can tell me at the same time.
Okay, the other question is you mentioned the policy to attract business from perhaps America, and you said that there's policy in place, but specifically what industries, and you don't have to give me a long list, but a broad stroke, what industries could we report back to say, if you export healthcare products, oil and gas, green technology, which areas would be an opportunity for our readers to say, hey, I want to do business in Morocco, let me get in touch with them to do business.